Here I have the beginnings of my tonal drawing, and I'm going to be working into it, going backwards and forwards using charcoal, darkening the darks and lightening the lights. I'm going to suggest that you give the learners a piece of paper, a test piece of paper, and this will be used for two reasons. One is when you start working with your charcoal on the side, you need to make sure that it's flat, because you can get certain circumstances where it's not flat and they get lines, which are very difficult to get rid of. So they're going to create a flat edge to their charcoal. And you're also going to be using as a drawing tool an eraser. And as you can see, it gets quite black. So you might want to clean your eraser on the piece of paper. As I mentioned, charcoal is very forgiving and very pliable in a way. So once you've done the first tonal aspect with your finger, you can always go back to the charcoal dust. The next idea is to use the side of the charcoal to bring in, and you're going to do it layer by layer. What the learners are going to want to do is they're going to want to outline or do it too dark and then they can't get back the lights. So the idea is to really encourage them to start off with the medium tones and work into their shoe. Okay, I've started in a dark area, but I haven't used my heaviest lines yet. I'm still working somewhat medium dark. And then I'm going to bring in lines. So I'm looking all the time at where my mediums are, where my darks are. One of the challenges is that learners often either want to make it too dark or too light. So some of them you're going to need to encourage to go a little bit darker, and some of them you're going to need to encourage to lighten up. So I'm working a little bit with line. Again, I'm creating some degree of texture with my charcoal because there is texture on my object, but the focus is going to be on tone. And so I'll be going backwards and forwards, creating medium tones, dark tones. And one thing that is very exciting is you can actually use your, as I said, your eraser as a drawing tool. So you want to avoid giving them this. You can use press stick as well. You want to avoid giving them this because then they're going to want to be perfect and try and use it as a correction tool, but it's not. It's actually as a tool to draw into the charcoal. To create some detail and highlights. So the challenge here is what to do with the textured bits. It's a little bit like clay in that one can actually sort of change it as you go along. The other thing that is quite important is I'm looking at my shoe, and of course it's sitting on the table, and there can be a light source, so you'll be looking at where the light is coming from. My main light source is coming from the window, but also keeping in mind that in a classroom you can have different light sources. So just ask the learners to look at where the light source is coming from, and if it's coming from this side, where the shadow is. So if the light source is coming from the left, you're going to be creating a shadow on the table on the right. And this you can also smudge a little bit with your fingers. So what's going to happen is learners are going to be increasing contrast And contrast is the difference between the darks and the lights. Now I'm creating a little bit of texture in my shoe. My shoe's got some texture in. And finally, I'm going to be going into the very darkest areas where it looks black. And I'm going to be working into those areas. So you can use your finger to smudge, looking at shadows, and all in all creating an image that's got substance, that's got darks, that's got lights, and that depicts tone. I hope that whets your taste buds and that you are excited to explore with charcoal and explore all the tonal values from the darks to the mediums and to the very lights. Thank you for joining me.